I know a lot of people bash on Lee Lukoski, he's built his brand and whatever. And, I mean, I watch his shows, his wife's not hard to look at, but as long as she's not talking.
You beat me.
But
she's like the OG, by the way. Like Tiffany's been
two
big guys.
No, for sure.
I heard something the other day. It said, when your dad dies, that's truly the only man in life that is joyful with you being more successful than him.
Yeah.
You want your buddies to succeed. You want your brothers to succeed, but you never want them to do better than you. And if you see people doing these kinds of things, they're doing better than you in your own mind, and you're going to have an issue with it.
High fence doesn't mean success, by the way.
No, not by any means. Well, like those access deer are a great example.
Yeah.
Good Lord, those things are finicky as heck, and then they look at you and they're gone. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think it's a jealousy issue. People are jealous that they can't afford to come do that. And there's guys that you could say, hey man, I'll pay for you to kill this deer. We'll do everything. You come in and just shoot it. We'll be done with it. And there's diehard public guys. No, I'd never do that. Okay, you're an idiot. You would do it. You're not going to, so there's guys that are going to wear their grave that are going to claim that.
And that's when you hit the bullshit button, right?
Yeah.
So that's when the bullshit button comes out, because who doesn't want to kill a 200-inch whitetail?
Exactly.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Seeing some of these big deer that people that I know now have shot, and they go to some of these high fence outfitters. It must be nice to be able to drop 20 grand and to just go kill a 250 if you want to. Well, yeah, that's jealousy right there. Because at that point in my life, I couldn't afford to do that kind of shit.
Yeah,
right. There was a $5,000 hunt was out of the realm of possibility for me.
Yeah.
That, much less what these guys were doing. You made a comment about especially high fence hunting and people bashing other people that hunt high fence. 100% agree with you, but I want to go back to that. So that kind of goes back into those guys that I only hunt public land, so I'm better than you. My opinion on those guys, and somebody's going to reach out in the comments and have something else to say. I feel like if a lot of those guys that only hunt public land, it's more of a monetary thing. Mm-hmm. That's all they can afford to do.
Sure.
And I'm not going to bash them for doing it.
No, not at all.
My problem is when they bash other people for being on the lease in Iowa or Ohio or Illinois or Kentucky or hunting a high fence, and you can clearly see it coming. What the fuck? Like, nobody's going out and bashing you for the picture of a 6-point you killed on public land. Everybody is in the comments like, hey, that's great. And the first thing you do, I witnessed this the other day. The Big Coat posted a photo of John's deer that he shot, and instantly, and I fucking went off on people. And if it's not public land and this and that, and I'm looking at these people's profiles, but tell me your side of it. You alluded to it a little bit, but what's your thought on that? Because I have a hard time with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same basis as you. I think it's jealous, and I don't want to say this in a way. I can't afford the deer in our high fence. You should come shoot. So I think it's jealousy of something that people can't afford. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to go hunt public land. You're going to put some money into it. I understand that. You got time and, your equipment to get in there, the whole 9 yards. And don't get me wrong. I'm not lying to myself that high fence hunting can be easier, can't be easier. I've hunted in the woods before, free range as it can get. And you hunt for 5 minutes and you kill your deer and you're gone. And then we had a client the other day came 19 times to shoot a red stag. So it's not always easier, as it's not always harder, but I think it's a jealousy issue. People are jealous that they can't afford to come do that. And there's guys that you could say, hey man, I'll pay for you to kill this deer. We'll do everything. You come in and just shoot it. We'll be done with it. And there's diehard public guys. No, I'd never do that. Okay, you're an idiot. You would do it. You're not going to, so there's guys that are going to wear their grave that are going to claim that.
And that's when you hit the bullshit button, right?
Yeah.
So that's when the bullshit button comes out, because who doesn't want to kill a 200-inch whitetail?
Exactly.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
100%. Everybody does.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get it, but I don't, right? I don't understand why the bashing. I mean, some people are more fortunate than others. Did they work harder? Were they more successful? Did they get a piece of luck? Well, that's fine. My problem is, I'll use John, for example. John works his ass off. John's got a very limited window to hunt. John does not have 3 months a year to dedicate to whitetail hunt, to grow deer, to put cameras out, to feed deer, to do this and that. He has a limited amount of time to go someplace and hunt, and he wants to be successful when he hunts. Yep. And you know what? I don't know that he's spending any more by doing that than me in Kentucky or somebody with a lease running trail cameras, running a food plot program, running all this other shit. What's the fucking difference? Yeah. We're all spending money to end up at the same place. If you shoot it in a high fence, you shoot it in a high fence. But to that point, I've watched two people at this fucking table struggle their ass off to hunt axis deer in a high fence. Yep. And not come up with anything. Like not one trip, but several.
We had our last 3 groups haven't been able to kill an axis deer.
Right.
We've got some we're supposed to. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It can be super easy, it can be super hard. But that's what we cater to is the guys that have limited time. Time is money. Not, most of your public land guys, I don't know how to not sound like a jerk, but they're going to work at Publix or, they've got time where they could get away and do something. Most of your business owners that, time is money. For a weekend costs them $20,000 to be gone. So they're going to come to a high fence, and spend some good money to get exactly what they want. Hey, I'm coming to shoot X, Y, and Z, and, let's try our best to do that. And then it's up to the guy to make it an experience. I was talking to a guy the other day. He said, I went to a high fence and I turned around and left because he walked over, he spun the feeder, and before he could leave, all the bucks are coming out to the corn. I'm like, yeah, that's ridiculous. And there's high fences that are like that. And those guys, it's a more corporate high fence. They're, trying to get you in, trying to get you out, trying to get you in, trying to get you out. And there's some locally that do that. But it's up to the guide to give you the experience of, hey, we're going to spot and stalk this deer or do that. And we try to cater to our customers. I've got guys, we had a guy the other day that shot that eland. And I said, all right, let's get out here and we're going to walk. And he looks at me and goes, does it look like I want to walk anywhere? I said, sounds good. We'll drive the Can-Am over there. There's guys that don't care and there's guys that do, and we're going to cater to the guy. It's your job to know your client in any aspect of work. You're fishing charters. You got guys that are going to do X, Y, and Z, customers, and so everything's different. But I think it bases off of jealousy, and people just can't stand. I heard something the other day. It said, when your dad dies, that's truly the only man in life that is joyful with you being more successful than him. Yeah. You want your buddies to succeed. You want your brothers to succeed, but you never want them to do better than you. And if you see people doing these kinds of things, they're doing better than you in your own mind, and you have an issue with it. So
that's a really good way to, and you hit the nail again on the head with experience. And that's a thing that Chris Liebenberg with the Vula preaches. He asks his clients before they come over, he and Nancy, and props Nancy because she's really good at it. What is the experience you're looking for? What do you want out of this trip? And they can cater an experience and a trip around what the individual hunter wants and what they expect to get out of it. Very much like what you do. That's what a lot of these kind of places do. And for people that don't have time, and time is the big thing, there are people that have lots of money, but they prefer to go out there and they'll buy themselves a little farm and they'll go out there and that's what they do. That's fine. But there's also people that don't have the time to go do that, but they want to enjoy the sport and they'd like to see a little success. Maybe. High fence doesn't mean success, by the way.
No, not by any means. Well, like those axis deer are a great example. Yeah. Good Lord, those things are finicky as heck. And then, they look at you and they're gone. It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
And I shot at Kevin's place at Timber Creek before I left for Kentucky. We needed to kill a couple of those, and Kevin and Taffy they had a few left. And they're like, come out and we'll hunt. And then Taffy hung out with Jenny and the baby, and Kevin and I went out, shot an axis deer with a 300 PRC on the shoulder. Never found the animal. There was a pile of blood that looks like that deer should be dead right there. Never found it. Yeah. That's a high fence.
Yeah.
I never found the animal.
And I think I was against high fences. We talked about this earlier. I'd never really been to a high fence before we owned one. So if you don't understand, you don't understand that stuff. You just hear what Jim Bub says about a high fence, and he's never been to one either. So you don't know. And so until you come out and experience something and you have that struggle, most of the guys you talk to, they're not just saying high fence hunting isn't easy because they're trying to make themselves feel better. And like I said, sometimes it is. But until you get out and experience that for yourself, you can't make a judgment on that.
I had an experience in South Africa. I think I told you the story. I badly wanted a 60-inch Kudu, a Southern Greater Kudu, and I still do. I still don't have a giant one. Now I do have some Southerns, and I don't have just an absolute giant. And I really wanted something that was 60 and above. And I hunted with an outfitter a few years ago with your father-in-law. And the outfitter's like, yeah, man, no problem. We can make it happen. I'm like, great. So we were several days in the hunt, and my PH says, all right, well, let's go hunt your kudu today. I'm like, all right. So he's like, we got a bit of a drive. I'm like, that's fine, no problem. And we drive, and we're in Limpopo, and maybe a couple hour drive, and we pull into this concession that's all high fence, and there's no illusion there that's going to be free range. I don't care. There's a southern breeder kudu that's not in a high fence. It's South Africa, so it just is what it is. But we get there, and then we go through a series of different gates and cattle garden and stuff like that. Now we pull into this, I'm going to call it a paddock. And as we're pulling through, the tracker jumps out, closes a gate. We start pulling forward, and the biggest kudu I've ever seen in my life is walking towards Boggy because he thinks he's getting fed.
Right.
And the PH, I'm not going to say his name, says, there he is, shoot him. I look back, you're out of your fucking mind.
That's a cow.
I'm not. And it was the absolute most beautiful kudu I've ever seen in person. It finished 3, turned out for 4, flaring kudu bull. It had a tag in each ear, and walking towards the Faki. I'm like, no, I'm fucking out. Yeah. Well, but that's what you want. I'm like, that is what I want, but I want to hunt it.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to just shoot it.
But a hunt and not shoot it.
Right. And that's the kind of shit that does go on in the industry. It does. I'm not going to say it doesn't. That's the kind of shit that gives that side of the industry a bad name, but not all places are like that. You've seen it firsthand.
Sure.
You've seen it firsthand. Sure. High fence doesn't mean easy by any stretch. And you're going to go to Africa and hunt your first time here next year. You will see that firsthand. Yeah. That is not a fucking guarantee of anything other than you're probably going to see animals. In fact, you're going to see several species a day. Now, whether you harvest the animal, that is a totally – and to get on that quality mature animal that you're looking for, there's no guarantee of that. You could have 5 or 6 animals on your list. You may come back with none of them.
Yeah. I mean, their concessions like 10,000 acres. They've got 100,000 acre concessions over there, stuff that – you know, and that's the thing. You get that big, an animal's never naturally going to move that much anyway. And people don't understand that, you know.
I'll go one further, especially in South Africa. With a kudu, we just talked about a kudu. I have personally, I watched it with you. I forgot about this. So Mike and I, there was 2 or 3 years ago now. Your first trip to Africa.
Yeah, yes. It'd be 3 years, yeah.
Mike wanted a kudu, and I was on the camera, and the actual owner of the company we hunted with, which was Hunter's Hill Safari at that time, Simon said, listen, I got a plan that the kudu like to come out of the mountains at night, and they like to go into the pivots. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. Well, we get there, the pivot's in a high fence. Like, they've high fenced this pivot off. And we go into this, like, we had to climb this fucking high fence, and our fat asses all the time trying to climb this thing, and me with camera gear and him with rifles. It
was dicey.
What the f*** are we doing? So we get there, and we're inside this pivot. And I don't remember what they had planted there. It was
I don't remember what it was. No, it was something. It was something low.
Maybe Lucerne. It was Lucerne.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what the f*** are we? Why are we in here? This was a 3 meter high fence, so it's 9 feet tall. These fucking kudu come out of the mountain. They walk up. The bull would walk up, kind of get like parallel to the fence, hunch back, and go over this
standing jump
over it.
Unbelievable.
So a high fence is merely a suggestion. Right. Most of these animals, it will keep sun in. However, a kudu, unless you're building it, so
40 feet tall.
An eland and a buffalo, they're going through
right through.
Well, an eland will jump it.
And a warthog's going to go under.
Yeah. So to see that's the first time
incredible.
In all these trips. And I watch, I'm like, are you
Yeah, it was incredible.
The cows were jumping the fence.
Yes, it was an incredible experience, really. Just to watch that, because it was cool. You're like, hey, there they are. You see them come out of the scrub and coming down the bush into the open field, and get to this fence and just look up and say, over they went.
Well, and this wasn't like there was a blind setup or anything. Like, we just kind of shotgunned it, and he said, like, I know they're in there because I drive by every night. So we climbed this fence and crawled in a ditch. For how long did we?
Oh gosh, we crouched down in a dry creek bed for probably 300 yards. And then we got to the fence. So then we climbed the fence, which, you know, I remember Simon saying, "You sure you can do this?" I'm like, "Oh, I want that kudu." We went over the fence, and then we crouched down and crawled another couple hundred yards. And then we got down, and he called it leopard crawl. And we got down on our bellies and belly crawled for another 158 yards. Got set up. Of course, the kudu at this point had jumped the fence and was in there. And then we got all set up. And then, of course, we had to shimmy over to the left a little bit, you know, so finally got set up to shoot, you know, but that was an amazing experience. Like I said, that was more like, oh yeah, I shot a kudu. No, let me tell you how this happened, you know, and it was amazing. It was really cool, you know.
You have a kudu story too. I blew one knee out.
So you blew a knee out in Africa then?
On the hunt.
Okay, well, tell us that. I haven't heard that. Man, I'm not in charge of the show, but I want to hear that.
You know, pussies will never be heroes.
Yeah. Here's your hero moment. Dude, he soldiered on too. He got her done. Yeah. So, I mean, it was like it was the one thing. I didn't even know what a kudu was. This is like 3 years ago, 4 years. I didn't know what a kudu was. I literally, like, the only animals I knew in Africa were like zebras. There you go. Blue wildebeest. I didn't know there was more. And like a lion and an elephant and shit like that. So I was like, I want one of these spiral horn looking things. The thing looks awesome. After you landed, you figured it was something. Yeah. Well, honest, like, I sent him my list, and he was like, "You should do this. Like, what about this?" And I was like, "I don't even know that animal." I had to Google it. Well, that thing looks awesome.
Yeah.
So he's like, "All right, we're gonna, like, day one." He's like, "We're gonna do this." And I was like, "All right, so I don't know what you're talking about here, man." I've hunted hogs and I've sweated my ass off in a pine tree in Florida my whole life. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. So he's like, "Yeah, in the morning we're going to go." And I'm like, "Sounds good." So we hunted all morning, glassed up everything, and just like, "Nope, not big enough. You know, I still needs, you know, he's not full curl, all this stuff." Come back, have a lunch. He's like, "We're going to go out again." We hike her out. I didn't even know Africa had mountains. Yeah. So we're hiking. I'm just like, "Oh, fuck." We're glassing. And then Hannes can see a kudu, I think, maybe 10 miles away. Yeah. And he's like, "There he is." He's like, I'm like, "Where?" He's like, third ridge on the left. I'm like, "I'll take your word for it, buddy." He's like, we had to crawl up this and hike up. Can you do it? I'm like, "Oh, I could do it." So we're going underneath these thorn bushes that are they're just hypodermic needles hanging off these trees.
Everything that story.
Yeah. So we're going and everything and all this stuff. The one flat rock on there has thorns all over it. So I'm just like, well, cowboy up. Yeah. I just lay on top of it. Like, whatever. Okay. He calls it, he stops it, drilled it, crushed it at 280. So I'm like, all right, also high-fiving him, all this stuff on there. He's like, "All right, now I go get it." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I'm on another ridge. The kudu's lying dead on the other ridge, and it's straight down and straight up, you know, and we had to jump a creek, all right, to get there. So we're hiking down, jump the creek, and I'm going up, and like, he's like, "All right, now we got to puff it 800 yards up." I'm like, so I'm going, these guys are mountain goats. They're just jump. I'm like, "Oh, we're here." I'm like, "Well, I'm down here, brother." So we're going up and just loose rocks everywhere. And I'm just like, all right, slow and steady. All right. I put my foot on a rock and, you know, lift up, and all of a sudden it goes kapow. And I'm just like, my knee's but I still have 200 yards to get to my kudu. So I'm just like, whatever, adrenaline will dump, and I'll just, you know, I'll just figure it out.
You'll pimp limp your way up.
Yeah. So I get there, and I'm just like, like half like crawling up. I'm like, it's not too bad. You know, like my knee's supposed to be this sore. So we get there, high five. He's like, "You don't know what you just did?" I'm like, "I don't even know what I just did either." It was like a 52-inch kudu. God, the first shot.
This is your first day.
First day or first shot. Free range. Free no high fence in the Stormberg Mountains. Yeah. You know, like, you couldn't have pictured, like, literally, there's an hour-ish of shooting light left.
And that was an East Cape kudu.
Yeah, it was Cape kudu.
He has Cape kudu, not a greater, which is even more friendly.
Yeah.
So, you know, we take the pictures and everything, and they're like, all right, now we got to get back to the Baki truck. And I'm like, I gotta go all the way back there.
I would have sat right there.
And then I was like, listen, man, I don't know how to tell you this, but my knee is trashed. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's properly all right, my body went one way and my leg stayed. Yeah. And he's like, all right. He's like, can you make it? I'm like, I can make it. So get all the way down. I gotta go all the way back up. And I'm just like, listen, you guys do what you gotta do. Like, I'll figure out just point me in the right direction. And he's like, all right, we'll figure it out. So I'm belly crawling. I can't extend. So I'm literally just like throwing my body over rocks, kicking my legs over, throwing my body over.
Hours to get
just hours. Yeah, just it's dark. Like, it's like, you know, it's pitch black. I think I have my cell phone camera, you know, and it was just like, there's a Ford Ranger somewhere.
There are a couple of lions and maybe a cheetah, you know.
And like my whole town, just like, I remember, like, I just have to worry about, you know, only leopards. I'm like, I mean, that'd be a cool way to go. Yeah. You know, it would suck.
I think.
Yeah. On there, I get mauled by a leopard, but whatever. I make it back to the truck, and I'm just like, all right, maybe I was being a bitch. Maybe my knee is not that bad. And I bend down, and I'm like, Jesus, this is the worst pain imaginable. And I'm like, it's shot, like, my hunt is over. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm gonna have to go back home, and, you know, get back to the camp, high five and everything and all this stuff. And I was just like, dude, I was like, if it was worth it, me blowing out my knee and everything, it was, you know, it sucks to happen day one, but hey, at least I got the one animal I thought was cool and stuff. And the rest of the night, I'm like Googling, like, what do I do? Like, how do you know if your meniscus is torn? And they're just like, just ice it. And, you know, I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to ice it and figure it out. So the next 13 days, I just popped 1,000 milligrams of Advil and just soldiered through the whole hunt.
Well, there was some bourbon involved too.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You washed it down with
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, like, it made for a cool story. That's a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
And we got the entirety of it on video.
Yep.
And it was the thing about Southern Raider Kudu, like the pinnacle is 60 inches and above. That's when it's comparable to killing a 200-inch, you know, free range whitetail. That's like the pinnacle. A free range Cape Kudu, when it hits 50, is comparable to killing a 200-inch whitetail, and yours was 50 plus inches, 52, 53. And as cool as that was, we had 3 first timers. We had more than that, but so in 3 consecutive days, Hannes went out, who was my TH, who I didn't hunt with because he's like the Kudu whisperer. He took Oscar first, then he took Uncle Dan.
Yeah, Dan shot that 55.
Dan shot a 55. And then Dakota, which was her first time out of the country, she was 18. It was her graduation trip. That Sappin's daughter brought her. She shot a 52-ish, 51 and something. We had 3 kudu in 3 consecutive days, all over 50 inches in free range. So that free range farm is 60,000 hectares, which is 140,000 acres in the mountains. Like,
Was that Chris's place?
that's Chris's house. Yeah. And people don't understand how hard of a hunt that is to do that. And to see, like, that just goes back to the quality of what the outfitter does and the preseason scouting and everything else that goes on to make this thing happen. Like, you just don't. I have hunted that part of South Africa for over a decade now, that far. I've never shot a 50-inch kudu.
Yep.
Never. And I've got 7.
Yep.
Never. And
That East Cape hunt, that is tough hunting, boy. Before you go your first time to hunt, you have all these preconceptions, you know, and people that don't hunt, they think,
Get up to the mic.
you know,
Get up to the mic.
yeah, before you go to Africa, and I'm no different. You have these preconceptions what you thought it was going to be, and when you get there, you're just like, good Lord, like you said, I'm like, mountains. Oh, look at this is amazing. So my first year there at Hunter's Hill, we lost a day of hunting. The first day we didn't hunt because it was pouring down rain. Well, we woke up the next morning, the mountain was covered in snow. You know, and I tell people out there, like, get out of here. The other thing in Africa, it's going to be 100 degrees. Yeah, if you're hunting in Cameroon, maybe, but you know,
Sudan.
all the way down in the Cape, it's their winter time. You know, and it was cold even the day. It was in the 30s a lot of mornings. You know, but it's amazing. You know, and it's the old cliche of it gets in your blood. And I mean, I can't imagine not going. You know, I'm already booked to go back next year. You know, it's just I can't imagine not going there. It's a main war boat. Yeah.
Well, and that's the one thing I'll caution you about. Once you go to Africa for the first time, like you'll do whatever it takes to go back. And some of us that continue to go every year, and I think Oscar's on about it every other year plan right now.
Yeah.
But there's something about that country that just, I can tell you that the sunsets are some of the prettiest things you'll ever see for whatever reason. And Mike's enjoyed it all over the world on boats and fishing, whether it's in Africa or South America or whatever. He's done that. But there's something about Africa that just keeps you coming back. And I know hospitality is a big part of that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the people and, you know, their faith. And it's like, it's genuine. They're genuine people. And they remind me of like my grandparents and how they lived, you know, and they're still, you say the word old school, you know, the term old school. It's like, they still know what it is to work hard. They're glad to do it. They're not going to complain and whine about it nonstop. They're just, oh, this needs to get done. Okay, well, let's get it done. You know, that type of attitude. And, you know, that's the mindset that built our country. You know, those people came to America about the same time that the people went to South Africa, really, just maybe within
our history is very similar.
Very similar, and for the same reasons, really. And built that up, you know, and it's something to behold. And, you know, it's awe-inspiring. You know, they're great people. I mean, I love the hunting. I love the country. It's beautiful. The animals, the birds, you know, and every time I go back, I learn, you know, 5 dozen new things. It's just, you know, it's great, you know, but it's the people, you know, it's the people you eat, and it's just fantastic. And they are billy goats. It's incredible. It's like the PH I had there in Hunter's Hill. He was chain smoking, and I couldn't keep up with him. I could just following the smoke trail or just climbing up the hill. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "All right, I don't like you." No, he's a great guy. In fact, I'm hunting with him again. I made sure I can hunt with him again. He's an awesome guy. But yeah, tough people. But I'm really good.
And that's the takeaway I get. You know, I've hunted a lot of pie fence places in the States and abroad too. And it's, you know, that's one thing it's one thing that sets places apart is the hospitality and experience. And I think if some of these places would focus more on the hospitality and experience side and bonding with their guests and that hunter, you'd get less of these turnstile type operations. Sure. The problem is those turnstile operations are profitable. Sure. At the end of the day, right? That's how life revolves around the dollar.
Yep. And I see it, you know, I always equate it to like the charter boats that used to be right there in Bahia Mar Marina in Fort Lauderdale. They catered to the people that were transitioning on and off the cruise ships. They didn't care if they were going to see those people again. Get them on, get them out of there. Try and get as much money out of them as you can through various channels. And, you know, it doesn't matter. And a lot of times the whole, you know, with the charter boat captain, the old gruff charter boat captain yelling and drinking a beer and all that. Some people might think that's great, but the vast majority of the people, you know, you have a family coming on a boat. I want to have a good time. You have to cater to it. And at the end of the day, whether it's hunting or fishing, it's the entertainment business. And if people are not having a good time, I don't want to get yelled at by my guide. Yeah. You know, I had a bad experience years ago. I went out to New Mexico to go shoot an elk with a bow. And, you know, my guide was drinking beers at 4 a.m. on the way to go hunting. And, you know, he wanted me to take the only bull I had in front of me was at 94 yards. And he was like, "Man, I can't believe you didn't try it." And I was like, "Well, I told you that's beyond I know I can't hit that. And if I did, it would be luck. And I would probably hit it somewhere and just hit it. Yeah. And if you hit an elk, your hunt's over." Oh, yeah. And it became readily apparent to me, that was his end game. Get me done so he can go to the bar and hang out. Because every day he's like, "Oh, you want to go to the bar for lunch?" I'm like, "No, I want to go back to the lodge. I paid for the lodge to have lunch, you know." But you know, and I'll never go back to that outfitter, you know. And I know in my charter business, you know, you came and fished with me all the time.
That's how we actually met.
I tried to make it a good time for everybody, you know. By satellite radio, playing my yacht rock, you know, whatever people wanted, you know, and just make it fun, you know. Still got to catch fish, but you got to have fun doing it. So, I don't know. That's my 2 cents. It's the same with the hunting for sure.
That was like a 45-minute tangent, by the way, that we just went down. We went down a rabbit hole. You bring stop. So we were talking about, the ugly side of the hunting industry. And then we just did a puff piece about hunting in Africa.
Yeah, but it segues into it because, like I said, those guys, they understand that they understand the camaraderie of it, and they understand that, you go to Africa, you're there for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, in your case longer, but you want to have a relationship with these people. I'm just texting all the time, and like that guy Toxic, he's like, oh, send me pictures of fish. I just went up to New York and went tuna fishing and caught this gigantic bluefin, and he loves seeing pictures of it. Now, oh man, that's amazing how big, and blah 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 blah. So it's really cool, Yeah, it's like out having a pen pal, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot that I think as an outfitter, especially in the States, there's a lot to be learned from that business model, how they do things over there. Because if more operations operated like that, then, they keep people coming back. I think those outfitters, the ones that do it the right way. I was talking to Nancy the other day because I hunted with her, for 5 days. And I think they're up to like 87% of their clientele is return business. 87%.
That's amazing.
And if you take care of people and you show them a good time, that's what's going to happen. And Avula, for example, they're not the cheapest out there by any stretch of the imagination, but people will overlook that for the experience and the time that they're having. Yeah, money matters to everybody. However, if you're going to have the best time of your life when you go, does it matter quite as much, or kind of thing? But all right, well, we're going to move on because we really get off. But back to that though. So back to the hunting industry. So, do you think? And I'll leave this open. Do you think you jealousy, cloud chasing, or insecurity? Is that where the hate comes from? Is that what drives the hate? What is it?
I think oftentimes that is the case. I see it, and we all see it on social media. These beefs between, what was the one guy called horn stars? I get a kick out of that, but it's kind of sad because it's a hunters attacking hunters, and this guy put a high fence deer on his farm and then claims this and that. And at the end of the day, who cares? It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people bash on Lee Lukoski, he's built his brand and whatever. And, I watch his shows, his wife's not hard to look at, but as long as she's not talking.
You beat me.
But
she's like the OG, by the way. Like Tiffany's been
two big guys. No, for sure. But and the shows are put together well, and I get it that my hunting experience is not going to be like that, and I don't have that kind of real estate to hunt around, and he does it year round, and that's great or whatever. It's fine, but I don't like it when we're better as a consolidated group than to bash each other. You know what I mean? That doesn't help us. That just gives the antis more of a purchase. Yeah.
That is perfect in that the antis and the super leftist mindset, there's so many people trying to attack what we love and what we do. We don't need to help them.
Yeah.
But that's what we're doing right now. And I see it more so now than I have. And maybe just because of what we do that it's more apparent to me now, but I see it constantly. And like I said, at a younger age, I was guilty of it. Like, hand a guy, I did it. I was that guy, but I saw the white, and I realized, man, that's no way to live. Be happy for somebody, sure, right? And people can't, I don't know if they're not capable, or I think you're onto something with the jealousy part. I really do.
Well, if you think back to those moments when you were feeling this, what was going on in your mind? What was actually, because we're all the same. We're all full of pride. We're all full of jealousy. We're all, born sinners. So what, when we think back to those moments in life, what were we feeling?
Well, and I think, for me, and I'll answer that honestly, I think, seeing some of these big deer that people that I know now have shot, and, they go to some of these high fence outfitters, it must be nice to be able to drop 20 grand and to just go kill a, 250 if you want to. Well, yeah, that's jealousy right there. Because at that point in my life, I couldn't afford to do that kind of shit.
Yeah, right.
There was a $5,000 hunt was out of the realm of possibility for me. Yeah. That much less, what these guys were doing, and the prices have steadily upped and upped over the years. So, it's, but
Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely there. Yeah, absolutely.